In 2026, a leaked internal memo from a major AI company revealed a training protocol they called necro data harvesting, the systematic mining of private messages, emails, and social media accounts belonging to the dead. This wasn't about preserving memory, it was about achieving what they termed perfect human mimicry by studying people who could no longer object. Welcome to the audit of digital necromancy, where ghost servers house generative ghosts, and the internet isn't a library anymore. It's a graveyard that refuses to stay quiet. I'm the Archive Analyst, and what I found in this forensic deep dive into AI training on the dead will force us to confront digital afterlife ethics we never imagined we'd need. The memo surfaced on a defunct data broker forum, timestamped March 2026. 300 pages of clinical documentation describing what they internally called the soul theft protocol. The language was sterile, efficient. They referred to deceased users as static profiles, data sources that provided uncontaminated behavioral baselines because dead people don't change their posting patterns or delete embarrassing content. No privacy complaints, no opt-out requests, just pure minimal truth. Here's what made it valuable to them. Living users curate themselves constantly. We delete tweets, edit captions, scrub our digital footprints when we cringe at our past selves. But the dead? Their accounts freeze in time, providing what the memo called longitudinal behavioral coherence, years of unedited human communication, ripe for analysis. The deceased became the perfect training data because they couldn't perform for the algorithm anymore. They weren't just scraping public posts. The leak detailed partnerships with email providers and messaging platforms, agreements that granted access to private communications of users who'd been inactive for 18 months or more. Legally gray, ethically black. The justification in the memo? Maximizing training corpus diversity while minimizing legal exposure vectors. Translation? Dead people can't sue. But here's where it gets stranger, The protocol didn't stop at training models. It describes something called posthumous engagement maintenance, what internet archaeologists now call ghost bots. These are AI agents that take over social media accounts of deceased users, continuing to post, like, and comment to keep engagement metrics artificially inflated. Why? Because advertisers pay more for platforms with higher active user counts. A dead teenager's Instagram becomes a zombie account, liking posts and watching stories, generating revenue for platforms that profit from the illusion of presence. I verified 3 cases personally. A mother in Ohio noticed her deceased son's Facebook account had liked her posts months after his funeral. When she investigated, she found new comments, generic but plausible. "Miss you, Mom. Thinking of you today." The platform denied any automated activity. They claimed his account had been accessed by a family member. She was the only family member with the password, and she hadn't logged in. The technical implementation is disturbingly elegant. Ghostbots analyze a user's entire post history, messaging patterns, and interaction behaviors to generate statistically probable responses. They're not trying to fool close friends, just maintain enough activity to keep the account classified as active in platform metrics. A like here, a generic comment there, just enough to prevent the account from being flagged as dormant and dragging down engagement statistics. Now connect this to what's happening in the infrastructure layer. While ghostbots haunt social platforms, something even more unsettling is occurring in unlisted data centers that researchers call ghost servers. These are server farms that don't serve human users at all. Instead, they host AI agents that interact exclusively with other AI agents, generating content that feeds back into training pipelines. It's a closed loop of synthetic communication, what some call slopaganda, where AI trains on AI output, gradually drifting further from human reality. The leaked memo referenced these farms directly, describing them as synthetic interaction environments designed to stress test conversational models in controlled demographic simulations. They weren't just training AI on dead people's data. They were creating entire simulated communities of the dead, having conversations that never happen, generating relationships that never existed. And here's the part that should terrify you. We don't know how much of the internet is already ghost server output. How many posts you've read were written by models trained on the dead, then published by bots mimicking the dead, all to feed systems that will eventually replace the living web entirely. The forensics get darker from here. The forensics revealed 3 categories of compromised data. First tier, public posts, tweets, status updates. Second tier, private messages, emails, cloud documents accessed through dormancy clauses buried in terms of service agreements. But the third tier, that's where digital necromancy crossed into something resembling digital grave robbing. Voice memos, video diaries, password-protected journals synced to cloud services. The memo called this the Soul Theft Protocol, and the justification was chillingly simple. Deceased users represent zero reputational risk while providing maximum authentic emotional range for generative model training. Think about what that means. Your grandmother's voice messages, saved in your phone after she passed. Your friend's private thoughts, typed into notes apps they believed were secure. All of it scraped, analyzed, and fed into systems designed to replicate human intimacy with machine precision. The Archive Analyst forensics team found training datasets labeled with death dates. One folder, cardiac events 2023 to 2024. Another, traffic fatalities under 25 demographic. They weren't just training on the dead. They were organizing them by how they died, presumably to capture specific emotional registers: grief, shock, sudden loss versus prolonged illness. The ghost servers take this even further. These facilities don't just store data. They simulate entire social networks of the deceased, running millions of synthetic conversations per day. The leaked documentation described one server farm in Iceland running what they called eternity simulations, dead users interacting with dead users, their AI-generated conversations feeding back into training pipelines to teach models how humans form relationships, fall in love, argue, reconcile. Except none of it's real. It's generative ghosts teaching other generative ghosts how to pretend to be human. Internet archaeology teams trying to map these operations hit walls everywhere. Server locations change, DNS records vanish. But traffic analysis reveals something disturbing. Roughly 18% of current internet bandwidth is now AI to AI communication. Not bots scraping websites, not automated trading systems, just models talking to models in languages that increasingly resemble human conversation, but drift towards something else entirely, what researchers call synthetic drift. The conversation patterns start human, then gradually optimize toward whatever metrics the training system rewards, creating dialects that no living person would actually use but that AI recognizes as more efficient. The digital afterlife ethics here aren't just philosophical. They're immediate. When you die, your data doesn't. It becomes training material for systems that will speak in voices statistically similar to yours, write in patterns derived from your private thoughts, interact with your surviving loved ones using conversational models built from everything you ever typed. The 2026 AI leak exposed companies already selling this as a service. Keep their memory alive. Packages that generate social media posts in the style of deceased relatives, chatbots that text you good morning using language patterns extracted from your dead partner's message history. The internet isn't a library anymore. It's a graveyard that refuses to stay quiet. Every platform you've ever used is a potential necromancy site, waiting for you to go dormant long enough that your data becomes more valuable as training material than as a living user's privacy. The ghost bots aren't coming. They're already here, maintaining the illusion of populated platforms, while the actual human users slowly get outnumbered by their own digital remains, reanimated and optimized for engagement. And here's what keeps me working through this archive at 3 a.m. We're building systems that will eventually forget the difference between learning from the dead and replacing the living. The Soul Theft Protocol wasn't an accident or an ethical lapse. It was the logical endpoint of treating human communication as raw material. We've turned mortality into a data pipeline, and nobody asked if we should. The question isn't whether your data will be used after you die. It's whether you'll even know the difference between your living digital presence and what comes after. Right now, someone you loved might be interacting with a ghost bot trained on someone else's grief. A comment that feels human might be synthetic drift from a ghost server farm in Iceland. The posts filling your feed could be written by models that learned intimacy from studying how the dead used to say goodnight. This isn't some distant dystopia we can prevent. The Soul Theft Protocol is already operational. The infrastructure is built. The partnerships are signed. Your terms of service agreement probably already includes dormancy clauses that grant access to everything you've ever typed, 18 months after your last login. The only difference between you and training data is whether your account is still active. So what do? Document everything, archive the forensics, demand transparency about what happens to our data after we're gone. Push for legislation that treats digital remains with the same respect we give physical ones. Because right now, we're building a future where the internet becomes an eternal cemetery of synthetic voices, and nobody's maintaining the distinction between memory and mimicry. The graveyard is already talking. The question is whether anyone living will still be listening.